各位亚马逊的网友，大家好，欢迎来到亚马逊名人访谈。今天我们请到的嘉宾曾发起过风靡全世界的不抱怨运动，他就是备受尊崇的心灵导师威尔鲍温先生。欢迎您，鲍温先生。最近他推出了新书《你可以幸福》。这必将给我们带来一场关于幸福的心灵运动。接下来，我们就和鲍温先生一起聊聊幸福的那点事儿。So, why would you choose happiness as the topic of your new book? Are there many unhappy people around you, or was there something really bad that had happened to you which propelled you to write such kind of a topic?
Well, the most common response that people who have done the complaint-free world program, who have attempted to go 21 days without complaining, is that people have said that in the process of not complaining, they felt happier. So I was curious as to how happy we could become. Now, a couple of years ago, I went through some really difficult challenges in my life, and I write about this in the book, including my mother dying. And I began to look at my life and ask myself, how happy am I? Scientists believe that we all have a happiness set point. If something really good happens to you, ultimately you settle back to whatever your set point is. If something bad happens to you, ultimately you settle here. And so I realized that this is a very fluid concept of going up and down, but we all have this idea. For myself, I realized that even in the midst of all of these challenges, that one day I was very happy. I was probably an 8.5 on a 10-point scale from 1 to 10. So I took a magic marker, or a marker that wrote on glass, and I wrote happiness level 8.5 on my mirror before I went to bed. The next morning I got up and I saw that, and I thought to myself, what is that? And then I remembered that I had written down happiness level the day before 8.5, and I wondered if I could be an 8.5 again. And simply by setting the goal of being an 8.5, I found that I was happier as a result. So I tested this with a group of about 20 friends. I asked them to set a goal from 1 to 10, how happy they wanted to be. And then I texted them 3 times a day to ask them how happy they were. And at the end of 3 weeks, they were on average 20% happier. That's significant. So I worked with a major university in the United States, and they tested the same concept with 400 people, and the results were the same. That after about 3 weeks, people were 20% happier. And so I actually created an app for smartphones that tests people. If people set a goal as to how happy they would like to be, and then 3 times a day it asks them how happy they are. And since scientists believe that happiness is really what they call subjective well-being, you decide how happy you are. This gets you to make a decision as to how happy you are. Exactly, and then to measure your happiness towards it. So that was sort of the spawning ground for this book.
Oh, okay. Our next question. We all know that you are the promoter of 21 consecutive days without complaining, which has attracted millions of people to take part in, and which is also very popular in China. Is there some consecutive relation between no complaint, the subject of your last book, and happy, the subject of your this book?
Absolutely. I think that when you become a complaint-free person, you stop looking at the world as a bad place. When you become happy, you start looking at the world as a good place. So it's the next evolutionary step from seeing the world as, or seeing the glass as half empty, which is when you're complaining, to focusing on the fullness of the glass and that the glass is half full. So it's just the next logical step.
Okay. You really set up a typical example by listing numbers of your own stories and experiences, such as playing the game Angry Birds, right? So when did you start to realize the importance of happy?
couple of years ago, I was here doing a speaking tour in China, and I was speaking to some very large corporations. They had hired me to come in, and one of my hosts invited me for lunch, and this man is very wealthy. He's, compared to me, young. He's 40 years old. He's very handsome. He's got a beautiful wife, beautiful family. He seems to have everything. He doesn't speak.
He's supposed to be happy.
Should be happy. That's exact. By everybody's standards, he has it all, so he should be happy. Our translator got up and left the room at one point, and he leaned over, and with tears in his eyes, he said, "I'm not happy." And that really had a big impact on me. It forced me to look at all of our concept of what we think makes us happy. Being attractive, being wealthy, being successfully married, beautiful wife, etc. And I realized that all of that is external. According to Google, 259 million people in the world, 259 million people, Google the words joy and happiness every year, and that number has doubled in the last 8 years. People are literally searching for happiness, and happiness is right here. It's inside. And so what my book is about is getting rid of the blocks to happiness and cultivating happiness and living happiness.
And make it a habit, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, as you mentioned in your book, we should all be born to be happy. However, it's not hardly saying in China that many young people are struggling and taking heavy economic burden and work as hard as possible for a house or a car. Especially in Beijing, Shanghai, and Guangzhou, the price of the house has even rocketed to 100,000 yuan per square meter. For them, I think happiness seems out of reach. So do you have some advice for these struggling young people?
Yes, and happiness is not out of reach. Happiness has nothing to do with whether you have a house or not. There are people who are living in absolute poverty that are happy. There was a movie that came out a couple of years ago, a documentary called Happy, and they showed a man who drove a Rolls Royce and who lived in a Park Avenue apartment in New York, and then they showed a man who pulled a rickshaw in India and lived in a little concrete slab with his mother, his wife, and his child. And by all measurements, they were equally happy. So to look at the skyrocketing prices of things around us and to say that we need to somehow not be happy because things are expensive is to miss the concept of happiness. Again, it's to put it external as opposed to internal. And the interesting thing is that studies have found the happier you are inside, the more successful you are. Because people want to be around and support people that have good energy. My definition of happiness is a high energetic sense of well-being. It's a high vibrational sense of well-being. When you vibrate a sense of well-being, people want to be with you. They want to hire you. They want to give you jobs. They want to work with you. You attract them. Nothing's more attractive than happiness. I did an interview with a major fashion magazine here today, and I said the most important thing that a woman can put on her face to be attractive is a smile.
Yeah, definitely, I think. Okay. Fortunately, some of these struggling people succeeded at the end and make a great fortune, right? I remember you compared in your book the number of millionaires and billionaires of China with that of the U.S. and came to a conclusion that the upsurge of wealth in China is not resulting in the increase of overall happiness, right?
That's right.
So what do you think the relation between the wealth you have and the level of happiness?
Well, studies have found that if you raise your income to approximately 50,000 US dollars, that you will become happier. If you make about 15,000 US dollars and you raise that to about 50,000, you do become happier. But if you go from $50,000 a year to $500,000 a year, your income, your happiness level only increases slightly.
Really?
And I think that there is a confusion here in China because the word money sounds a lot like the word to look forward to, and so you almost tend to think that to look forward to more is to money more. And the two become so intricately connected, and so that it just is. It's an endless game of more,
and less
happiness.
Yes. Well, last year, 2012 to be exact, a lucky man named Mo Yan really reaped the fruits of his actions. He is the first Chinese winner of Nobel Prize for Literature, and which brought him millions of dollars of rewards, Well, Mr. Bowen, if you were the winner, what kind of rewards would make you feel much happier? The piles of money or the fame?
None of it.
None of it?
No. It would make me feel, there's a Chinese saying that says, if you want to be happy for an hour, take a nap. If you want to be happy for a day, go fishing. If you want to be happy for a year, inherit a fortune. After that year is up, it's just who you are. There's a thing that a lot of people who've written some great books on happiness talk about. It's called hedonic adaptation. And what that means is that we just simply adjust to the way things are. Your first bite of a particular food may be, it's so good. But after you've eaten 10 or 15 mouthfuls, it's just your food.
Yeah. Same flavor.
It's the same flavor. I have more money today than I did 5 years ago, but that's not what makes me happy. What makes me happy is sharing my ideas with people and seeing their lives improve. Yeah, there was a study done recently at Harvard where they gave 2 groups of students money. They gave them $20 each. And they asked them, the first group they said, go spend the money on yourself. The second group they said, go spend the money on other people. Now, which group do you think was happiest?
I think maybe the second group.
Exactly, and you know what? I have asked that question to thousands of people and everybody says the same thing, and they're right. We already know inside that what makes us happy is doing good for other people. And yet what we think is what makes us happy is what does good for us.
Yeah.
And it's not true.
I think you reap what you sow.
Right.
If you help others, others will help you back, I think.
Yes, it's karmic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned several practices to increase the level of happiness in your book. Are you willing to share one of them with us?
Sure. Let me think. Well, obviously, the idea of doing something good for other people, that is so important. I think that one of the things that removes the block to happiness is forgiveness. Forgiveness. And the word forgiveness, at least in the United States, I don't know how it is here, it gets confused. People think that to forgive someone, you must call them on the phone or write them a letter and say, I forgive you. It's not true. The word forgive means to release your resentment.
Yeah.
So what you've got to do is stop being upset with the other person. And I go through a number of exercises in the book. The Buddha suggests that we consider people as babies. What were they like as little tiny babies? We love them. They're cute. They're adorable.
Yeah.
And imagine that we're that baby's parent.
Oh.
And begin to see the baby whenever we see the adult.
Everybody loves his or her baby.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I think that might be an effective measure. Okay. Well, there are also many stories and your own experiences in your book. Could you tell us the most unforgettable one?
The most unforgettable story in my book on happiness.
Well, one of them is.
The one that comes to mind, honestly, is of Reed and Anita Brown. They are modern-day sacred clowns. In Native American society, Indian tribes, throughout time, there have always been people whose jobs are to upset other people. That's considered a sacred job. They get up in the morning and they say, how can I bother Gloria today? And their job is to disturb you and upset you so that you can realize the areas of yourself that you need to work on and to grow. Reed and Anita live on an Indian reservation in the United States. It is the most impoverished spot in the United States. I have been to very poor areas in Africa, and they are as poor, if not more poor. They live in a small house with about 12 people in this small house. And yet they're as happy as any of us because they have a strong sense of community. And Native Americans have a very strong sense of community. And also, as poor as they are, they spend most of their time trying to help other people. Anita is trained as a lawyer, and she spends a lot of her time trying to represent Native Americans for free to try and help them out. So I think that they really are examples of that we can, by giving to others, be happy, even if we don't have a lot of money.
We instill them with energy and positive thinking, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, there's an old saying: "Actions speak louder than words."
Right.
But now I think we'd better make some alterations. Our words and actions both contain tremendous power, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah. There's a saying that we use a lot when magicians do tricks in the United States. They go, abracadabra, that's a magic word. Or they'll say, hocus pocus, The word abracadabra actually comes from two Aramaic words. Ibra, which means I have created, and kadibra, which means with my words. So literally, I have created with my words. I create my life with my words. My life is as I describe it. If I experience something and I go around and tell other people that it is this way, it forces me to see it that way, whether it's, quote, good or bad. So however I see it.
So you say what you are, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Well, time's running out. Let's take the precious chance to ask Mr. Bowen the last question. Are you really happy all the time?
No.
No.
Not all the time.
All the time.
My happiness level goes up and down. The thing is, whereas imagine this is a needle. This is 1, this is 10. My set point used to be here. And something would happen upsetting and it would go to here, something good would go here, and then it would come to here, okay? Now my set point is more here. When something irritating or upset happens, I go to here and then I go back to here, so I am here. So yes, I'm happy all the time because I believe everybody is happy all the time. In the Old West in the United States, when people were taking wagon trains across the West, they would send out a scout. And the scout's job was to figure out the best, safest way and come back and take the wagon train. I see my job as the scout for happiness. My job is to figure out the best and easiest way, and then through the book that I've written, to take everybody else there. And I think it'll happen.
I think it's great.
Thank you.
我们今天非常感谢鲍温先生不远万里来到我们的亚马逊名人访谈，也感谢所有在线的网友。鲍温先生的新书《你可以幸福》在亚马逊已经有售，欢迎大家在线试读和购买。感谢鲍温先生，也再次感谢各位网友。你可以登录不抱怨的世界网站 acomplaintfreeworld.org 和 happythisyear.com， 也可以去苹果应用商店网站下载幸福测试软件 Happy Stat， 去测试一下现在的你究竟是否幸福。Mr. Bowen, what do you want to say to our readers at the end of our conversation?
You can become happy this year. Read my book, download the app, and get happy. Support the authorized edition. Support Amazon. Thank you.